Sunny Fisher into the studio with us. If you want to know more about Sunny, go to FORUS, FORUS.global. We're talking about the global digital exchange. And if you go and look at the explanation here, it says it's a public utility blockchain and ecosystem solution that provides a single global universal and trusted user authentication platform for mobile and web-based transactions for the banked and the unbanked. That's a service that I don't know what I've just read, but Sunny, it's lovely to have you with us.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, listen, man, thank you for coming in
and
joining us. I know we're going to be doing a lot of this on the show. Tell us a little bit about FORUS.
Okay.
What is it?
FORUS is a free banking platform. It's a competitor to Visa and MasterCard. So we have cards, we have mobile apps, and it's basically a replacement for the old technology platforms. Visa and MasterCard were invented in about 1960, before the internet, way before the internet. So it's impossible to secure, because in the old days, the banks used to own the networks. They actually owned the cables between the branches and their ATMs, because there was no such thing as a public internet. Then with the development of the public internet, their banking systems were not designed to be transmitted over a public network, right, that anybody can access. So as a result, it's become expensive, it's slow, it's a pain, fraud's out of control. And a couple of years ago, I got into banking. I'm a serial IT entrepreneur. And I had a look at this mess, and I thought, there's got to be a better way to do things. There are 3.5 billion people who trade in cash, who don't have banking systems and technology to use, which in today's day and age is ridiculous. So I said, well, let's see if we can solve that problem. Let's see if we can bring people out of the cash economy into the digital world, which is, the world that I live in, and I know the potential of it and what it can do for people. So I thought, how difficult can it be? Let's develop a banking platform that's designed around what people really need. And for me, a big thing was that was based on ethical and sound, fair principles, and not part of the predatory capitalist system of exploiting poor people.
Sure.
So, yeah, big goal. It's taken 9 years to get all the pieces together to be able to do this on the kind of scale that you need to pull this off. It's taken me all over the world. I lived in the US, in the Caribbean, spent time in China, Europe, went all over the world putting together a solution to solve this particular problem, and that's FORUS.
And that's where that came about. All right, so I don't even know where to start where I ask you with regards to the questions around this system, but are you telling me that this is now going to surpass and replace banks?
It's basically, it's replacing cash, and it's replacing Visa and MasterCard. Banks will still remain, not in the form that we've seen them currently, and they're going to evolve into the digital world. But what we did was, whilst everybody else was trying to digitize banks, we took it a step further and we digitized money. So what we have is smart money. If you think of the evolution of your phone to a smartphone, we've done the same thing to money. We've taken all the digital potential that you can do, things like smart contracts, which we can get into. But basically, we've taken the technology that's available today, put a platform together that provides what people need. And the reason banks exist is not to do payments and these things. It's to lend money, right?
Yeah.
Everybody needs money. And what we've done is we've put a platform together that can provide finance on an ethical basis to people who need it, i.e. small businesses, agriculture, students, the parts of the market that aren't being serviced by the traditional vulture capital, sort of predatory capital market. We took the best of technology, the best of social business thinking and ethical business, and put that all together and said, hey, imagine a world where banking was a force for good and for positive change.
Who are you backed by? Because, this is no small feat in order to kind of one platform replace
I was
a
backed
banking system.
by God.
Okay, there we go.
I can honestly tell you that it's purely by the grace of God that we've got through this. You can imagine funding a business over 9 years, particularly trying to sell free banking to banks. It wasn't that warmly received in the beginning as a concept. It took them a while to get their heads around that this is actually a more profitable model than the traditional one. So,
is this a win-win then?
It's a win-win. Everything has to be win-win. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. That's what win-win means. As soon as somebody's losing, it's a matter of time before everybody loses. And if you have a look at it in banking, you can't exploit people, charge them 100% interest year in, year out. Eventually, they run out of money. You've garnished all their wages, and the thing collapses. And we do that over and over again. And
the little guy always loses. I get really grumpy, all the bank charges, and you can't explain to me why. I'm just a number.
Etc.
Etc. Yeah. All right, so we're going to talk about this. I'd like to understand a little bit about what utility blockchaining is and all of these other terminologies.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll be back in a moment's time talking about FORUS. Go check them out. FORUS, FORUS.global.
Real, relevant radio. Kingfisher FM.
They talk about the school system being outdated, the banking system being outdated. Sunny Fisher joins us in studio to give us a breakdown of that truth. You say the banks, it's a non-sustainable system or unsustainable system.
Completely unsustainable. Can you think of another business where there's an untapped market of 3.5 billion people? What a market opportunity, right? All these people, it's trillions of dollars a year in the economy, in the informal economy, the economy of poor people. But by not addressing their needs to do business digitally, by leaving them to deal in cash, what you do is you force them to only be able to do business with the person standing in front of them.
Okay.
In a connected world where everybody's doing e-commerce and transacting, why are we leaving poor people behind? How are they ever going to get into the global economy if we can't get them off cash? So that's the very first thing we need to do, which is actually, a good segue into one of the reasons why we're in Nelson Mandela Bay.
All right. Well, joining us in studio today, if you've just tuned in this afternoon, we're going to be chatting to Sunny Fisher, involved or spearheading FORUS.global. Go and check them out. It's the global digital exchange replacing the banking system. Just give us some of the statistics. You were talking to me off air about the dire situation that our nation and our world is currently in when it comes to money, before we talk about why you're based in the Bay.
Right. So, there are 3.5 billion people who are unbanked and who live on less than $2 a day. This situation isn't getting better, it's getting worse. Now, that's if you look at it on a global basis. If you look at it on a South African basis, I've been working on this project for 10 years. When I started, our social grants were paying out 75 billion a year. Mm-hmm. This year it's going to be 150 billion. In the next 5 years, we're going to spend R1 trillion on social grants, which are mainly child support grants. So essentially what we're doing is we're just paying money every month to feed a growing number of people. There are now more people who receive social grants than there are employed. Now, you don't have to work out, it'd be a rocket science to work out, it's going to end in disaster. It has to. We're going to collapse under the weight of the social problem. And what we need to do is we need to turn that tide. We need to give people hope, give them opportunity, and give them access to finance, because it doesn't matter what you do, whether you're studying, whether you've got a big business or a small business. If you want to grow it, if you want to get out of where the position that you're in, you need money to do it.
So would you say that expression is true? You need money to make money?
Absolutely. Everybody who's been in business knows that. Because that's what business is. You take an idea, you take some sweat, you put a bit of money in, and together you create something that is worth more than the bits that you started with. And that's how you create value. That's what an entrepreneur is.
Right.
That's what business is about. So it's impossible to do it without money. If you were building a factory that cost 100 million and you went to the board and you showed them the projections and this is how much we're going to make, and they said, okay, great, here's 10 million, go and do it. You can't. It takes money to make money, yes, because it requires resources. So what we've done as a society is we've cut people off from the ability to access finance. Mm-hmm. The only finance we give them access to is predatory finance, where they are desperate and pay 60 to 150% interest in South Africa. That's the only access to finance we're giving people, which is actually a debt trap that
just makes them poorer.
Makes them poorer in no time at all. We take advantage of their desperation. And it's crippling the economy. The township economies have gone backwards since 1994. In every single measure, we're worse off than we were. We have less small businesses. In fact, we have less businesses paying tax now than we ever did. So what we're doing is we have this huge social problem of social grants. We have this education problem where we don't have the money to educate people properly. We have this massive unemployment situation. We work on a project in KwaZulu. There are 100,000 people, 50,000 are unemployed, and that's what's out there. So what we need to do is we need to come up with a solution, something that works, something that can address the core problem, and that's what FORUS is about. It's addressing the banking issues, which is access to capital.
Yeah, talk to me about the banks. So you're basically saying it's legislation that people can be 80% indebted as well. You mentioned this.
Absolutely. You know, if you have a look at, for example, the other major drain on the fiscus in South Africa is the civil servants, the wage bill. It consistently outperforms inflation. Why does the government keep having to give civil servants more and more money? Because they're repaying loans. There are at least 1.5 million civil servants who are drowning in debt. So now you're making 20,000, 30,000 a month, but you come out with $5,000 a month.
Correct.
So the only way that the government can address that is by keep increasing it. It means we're saying, no, that doesn't make sense. You're taking taxpayer money to fund the microlenders and the banks who then, just drain that money out of the economy. We can't keep paying the social grants. We need to get people into small businesses and into agricultural projects so that they can sustain themselves.
Talk to me about this nest egg philosophy of FORUS.
Well, somehow we became a culture of debt. It wasn't always that way, and there are other countries in the world like Germany who we're working with, the cooperative banking industry there, where there's a culture of savings. And how do you get from being poor and in debt to having some savings and some assets?
Everyone's turning up their dial now. How do you do that?
So the answer is simple. It's the same way that we defeated something as big as apartheid, because what we're talking about is a big issue. And the answer is by working together, okay? So what we've done with our platform is we've created a national credit register where people can register, and we will refinance their debt at 12% interest over 5 years, which drastically brings down their loan repayments. And what we do is we only make half of those savings available to them on a cash basis, and the rest we invest for them. At the end of their 5-year period, they're debt-free, and we give them the interest back as a nest egg.
Hello.
So you've gone from being indebted to having some savings, which we then allow you to borrow against. And even more importantly, we encourage you to get together with a group of your friends and borrow more money as a group together so that you can start a business, a cooperative. And we have a whole lot of these businesses and business opportunities that we've developed with various partners who are specialists in this. And we're saying, hey, get to work. It's not about looking for a job. Okay, there are no more jobs. There are never going to be jobs. We need to create businesses. We need to become self-sufficient. And we need to be able to grow our own food, build our own houses, and stop looking to government to solve the problem. We are government. We need to work on this together. And I think that's the big thing about FORUS and why it's for us. It's for the banks. It's for the government. It's for the people. Because if you have a platform that's free to everybody, that works for everybody, that can help the taxi driver, the grant recipient, a stockbroker. I mean, there's something in this for everybody. Everybody has to win. The banks, what we do is we allow them to access new markets that they just can't get to. So it's about everybody winning. It's about a banking system where everybody wins.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more about this banking system. You've got me interested. Global Digital Exchange for us. We'll be back and talk about the man who's making incredible moves in, I don't want to say the banking industry, because...
Yeah, we can say the banking industry. Yeah. Bankers are our friends.
There we go. Usually when the banker offers me a chair, I say, no, I'm fine on my knees. But we've got FORUS in studio with us. It's a global digital exchange replacing the banking system. I'll say it in inverted commas.
Correct.
Kingfisher with us. I asked you off air, drop a couple of names for us to just help us understand the immensity of what we're actually talking about over here with this launch that's been, you say, a rolling launch that you started off as a vision 9 years ago.
Yes, my travels took me all over the world because the hardest challenge in introducing a new payment system is you need something called ubiquity. Okay? In other words, you have to be everywhere at once.
Yeah.
Think of it like the fax machine, right? Who did the guy who was selling fax machines, who did he sell them to first? Because who were they going to fax, right?
True story.
If you think about it. So we have the same problem. So we're launching a payment system, right? So it means customers have cards or mobile apps, and merchants need to be able to accept that payment. What you need to do is in a very short space of time, you need to have enough people to get past the tipping point where merchants start saying, hey, another customer walked in and said they want to pay with FORUS, we better get it. And you have people, everybody's talking about, hey, but did you pay with FORUS? Why are you still paying bank charges? You need to reach that point.
Nice.
So in the research, I did about 2.5 years of research before I actually embarked on the development of the business. I identified the critical mass numbers being 100 million to get that ubiquity. So obviously you can't get ubiquity in a single country. So when I tried to launch it in South Africa, 2011, around there, I had a solution to offer the social grant payments for free. I'd partnered with Richard Branson and his Center for Entrepreneurship and was using the platform for entrepreneur funding. And I had a bank on board who were given the preliminary go-ahead to launch, and then they pulled out. So I realized then that you couldn't pull this off in a single country. Now, I was a seed investor in another mobile banking product that you may have seen or heard of called SnapScan.
I was thinking about it when you talk about ubiquity
Right.
and everybody now, the SnapScan thing.
Right. So I was an early investor in that, saw the potential, and then when things didn't work out in this country, I went overseas and said, you know what, I'm going to get America on board, because to pull this off, to get the numbers I need to bring the US market. So I went and I set up a business in Atlanta, and there I hooked up with the African American church community and found my second home in Atlanta amongst the African American community. Another story altogether. Amazing people who also have the same economic exclusion issues that black people have in South Africa. So it's real there too. But then I was fortunate enough to get introduced to Barbara Streisand's management team, Marty Ehrlichman, who's business manager, is now about 88 years old.
Wow.
And I worked with him and the team for 2 years in LA. Worked with every record label, film studio, multi-channel network, to see how we could use our technology to get ubiquity. Because if you can get a couple of people with big Facebook followings to use your product, you can get traction quickly. So what I figured out when I developed the technology was I realized that we'd figured out a way to monetize Facebook.
Yes.
Now, you've heard of Facebook, right?
Yes, yes.
So when we launch our platform, people will be able to just share our codes on their Facebook page and do business directly on Facebook. So it's the first secure payment platform for Facebook.
So is this like Facebook banking as well?
It's everywhere banking, because banking's changing. You don't have to have a mobile banking app anymore. You can integrate payments into anything. I'll give you an example. Uber. You get out the car, you walk away, the payment happens. Can't it work like that in everything? Why is it so complicated? Doesn't have to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the paradigm of how payments work based on the digital era. And too many people are thinking, how do I take a manual procedure and digitize it? If you're going to go digital, what we did, and my speciality as a systems architect is, I looked at the problem and I said, well, that's interesting, but what if we turn it around? So, for example, with SnapScan, the innovation there is that the merchant gives you their information, you don't give them yours. So now all of a sudden we don't have to protect your data because you didn't give it to the merchant. Sounds simple, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. It is simple. So when you study a problem, carefully, and you because I didn't know banking when I got into it 10 years ago, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know what the rules were. So I just asked stupid questions, and then you come up with some radical answers. So for us, as a banking platform, there's a card, a smart card that you can swipe at the supermarket, just like you do with normal banking. There's a mobile app. There's a website. There are a whole host of apps, and at the end of the day, it's more than a payments and banking platform. It's a lending platform. So what we've done is we've created a platform where we can provide loans to small business and entrepreneurs. And we came up with a way of using technology to mitigate the risk that it still can be done profitably.
Okay. Well, don't just listen to the conversation. Log on, go and check it out, read up on it yourself. The Digital Global, or the Global Digital Exchange for us. It's going to hit critical mass, you say, when?
On Madiba's 100th birthday on the 18th of July, and we need Nelson Mandela Bay to help make that happen. More details to follow.
More details to follow. He did whisper to me just off air as well. Richard Branson was earlier in the mix. Beyonce almost launched this in the US. I don't know. Yeah, we are. So we'll see what happens on Madiba's birthday, just
Indeed.
around the corner. FORUS.global. Go and check them out. We are here with the founder, Sonny Fisher. That's it for us, though. We're going to talk about it. Pardon the pun. We'll talk about this next week, Monday. Delve into a little bit of how this system works that will transform the banking world as we know it.